meeting will now come to order. Welcome to the December 5th meeting of the City of Raleigh Design Review Commission. My name is Will Gaskins. I'm the chair of the commission. The Design Review Commission is a public body appointed by the City Council that exercises both advisory and quasi-judicial functions. The commission's responsibilities relate to zoning and other land use matters, as well as the visual quality and aesthetic characteristics of the city. Today's agenda includes requests for design alternates from the city's Unified Development Ordinance. When hearing requests for design alternates, the Design Review Commission sits as a quasi-judicial body and conducts an evidentiary hearing on the request. This means that it is like a court hearing. State law sets specific procedures and rules concerning how this commission must make its decisions. The commission's decisions are constrained by the standards in the city's ordinance and the facts presented at the hearing. The commission hears and considers evidence presented at the hearing and applies the standards set forth in state law and the city's ordinance. The commission must base its decisions upon competent material and substantial evidence presented at the hearing. If you'll be speaking as a witness, please focus on the facts and standards, not personal preference or opinion. This meeting is open to the public and everyone is welcome to watch. However, participation in the hearings is limited. Parties have rights to participate fully. Parties may present evidence, call witnesses, and make legal arguments. Witnesses may testify as to the facts to which they are competent to testify, so long as those facts relate to the legal standards. In addition, lay or non-expert witness testimony is limited to facts, not opinions. For certain topics, the commission needs to hear opinion testimony from expert witnesses. These topics include projections about impacts on property values and projections about impacts on traffic safety. Okay, it's my understanding that both DA4 and DA11 intend to continue. If we could have DA4, the attorney, come forward, please.
Good afternoon. Worth Mills on behalf of the applicant requesting that we continue this case to the February 6th meeting. Discussions with transportation are progressing, and so we are making progress, but appreciate your patience as we work through that end.
Okay, so continue to the February...
I think it's February 6th.
February 6th. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
If representative of case DA 1124 would come forward.
Good afternoon. Toby Coleman here on behalf of the applicant, Blue Heron Properties, here to request a continuance to the January meeting. We had a meeting with transportation earlier and need to work on a few things before we bring it back to y'all.
Okay, and the January meeting is January, okay, so continuance to January 2nd agenda.
Actually, let me amend that. We should just go ahead and go to February if it's January 2nd.
Casey, I'm looking, is February?
February 6th.
February 6th.
February
Great.
6th.
All right, continuance to February 6th. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, before we call case DA 10 forward, I believe there are two commissioners that would like to recuse themselves.
Yeah, I need to recuse myself from this one.
I need to recuse myself.
And just for state for the record, that's because you have a direct associational business relationship with an affected person.
Yeah, that's right. The firm that I work for is doing the design on the project for architecture.
Same, where my firm is landscape architect, civil engineer for a project.
Okay. I don't normally always do this, but it might be best if you kind of, just for clarity, step away from the table until after the case is over.
Great. I think typically you guys just sit in the front row, and that's fine. So just for the record, that's Commissioner Roberts and Commissioner Thoms who were recusing themselves. We have 8 commissioners who will all be voting and acting on this case. So if the representative for the case would just come up and confirm that you're comfortable proceeding with 8 commissioners.
Yes, we're comfortable proceeding.
Excellent. And then I think, Casey, if you'll introduce the case. And I'll swear you in as well. Okay, we will now open the evidentiary hearing for DA 10-2024. Casey, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, so the subject property is located at the southwest corner of Midtown Market Avenue and Astor Elgin Street with address 7740 Midtown Market Avenue, and it is zoned planned development. The applicant is proposing to construct a 6-story mixed-use building across the site, comprising of a mix of residential and commercial uses and structured parking. They have requested 2 design alternates. The first is for relief from the requirement for vehicles to enter and exit parking areas in a forward motion for a proposed driveway located on Astor Elgin Street. And the second design alternate is to reduce the minimum spacing from 150 feet to 99 feet between the proposed driveway on Midtown Market Avenue and the intersection of Midtown Market Avenue and Astor Elgin Street. The city's blocks, lots, and access regulations are intended to provide a well-connected street network, safe, efficient, and convenient access within and between developments, and to lessen traffic congestion. And there are 4 findings that need to be met in order to grant a design alternate to these access requirements. And that's for that first design alternate request, and for the second one, there are 6 findings to be met to grant the design alternate from the Raleigh Street Design Manual. That's all that I had. With that, I'll invite our transportation staff member up in case they have any comments they'd like to share with you all before the applicant comes up.
Good
If you
afternoon,
would,
I'm Tyler O'Farrell. I guess I'll get closer. Good afternoon, Tyler O'Farrell with City of Raleigh Transportation.
and I'll swear you in.
Yeah, go ahead.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you'll provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
City of Raleigh transportation doesn't really have anything to add to what Casey presented, so if there are any questions here for
I think that seat's open.
additional feedback.
Okay. Any commissioner questions at this point? Saying none. If the applicant would come forward to present the case.
Good afternoon. I'm Collier Marsh with Parker Poe at 301 Fayetteville Street, here on behalf of the applicant. I do have a presentation if we could bring that up. And so I'd like to start by asking that our application, the case report, presentation, all the supporting materials be admitted into the record.
So admitted, thank you.
All right, and I'd also like to start just by having our witness sworn in, if that's okay.
If you would state your name, relation to the case, and address, please.
I'm sorry, what were the last 2?
Name, address, and relation to the case.
David Boyette. I'm with McAdams, a civil engineer, 621 Fayetteville Street. And I'm the project manager and civil engineer for the project.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you provide will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
I guess I had the control to bring up the presentation. So there it is. So this is a request for two design alternates. This is a vertical mixed-use project within the 5401 North planned development. So just want to pause on this intro slide to put this project in perspective. So these design alternates relate to site access and access to the parking garage. But really, the motivation behind these design alternates is to be able to have a successful vertical mixed-use building. And so this is a perspective coming in on Midtown Market Avenue, which is the main entrance into 5401 North. The perspective is northwest of the site, looking at our northwest corner. And so you see ground story retail and then residential units above it. What's interesting as well is across that street that goes in front of our building, there's a little parklet and kind of an active pedestrian space. And so this is really, although not the subject of the specific request, this is the motivation behind it to come up with a project that can have a successful vertical mixed-use component in an area where you wouldn't see a lot of vertical mixed use. So we think it has an exciting outcome, but we're going to get bogged down in some site access details to get there. So with that, I'll just go through a couple of the intro things. Site and surrounding area for context, again, it's a relatively small site for this type of project. It's 2.3 acres. So we're within, as I said, the 5401 North PD site outlined in red there with that Midtown Market Avenue that goes in north of the site, and the other street to keep in mind is directly on the right-hand side or east of the site. That's Astor Elgin Street, and so those are going to be the two streets that we talk about with these alternates. Continuing on, just wanted to show some of the lot maps and point out that, so we're lot 30, to the west is that lot 28. That's not the little parklet, and so that's an area where we want to have a more successful pedestrian space across from our retail. So again, we'll talk about it through our witness, but those are some of the drivers behind these requests. To identify the request to start, this is our site plan. Blue is the driveway to intersection spacing request. So this will relate to the entrance to our parking garage off of Midtown Market Avenue, and the subject spacing is the spacing between that entrance and Astor Elgin Street. The second request is shown in green, and that is the request to have our loading vehicles back into the loading area and then pull out in a forward motion. So we'll cover why that functions well and functions safely. They're driven mainly by the need to, or the goal to have a successful vertical mixed use and retail section on that northwest corner and that western side, as well as some site constraints, small lot size, and some topography that we'll go into. This slide just quantifies the requests. Back in, pull out forward is the first one for 8.3.5. Normally it would be forward in and forward out. And then for section 9.5, we're asking for 99 feet spacing in lieu of the typical 150 feet spacing. I know you all have seen these elements a number of times, so they're slightly different for the two requests, but generally cover similar things. We will present competent material and substantial evidence to address each of these elements, and we'll try to point them out throughout our testimony here. So with that, I think we'll start with David's testimony. And actually, I just want to make one clarification. It says driveway spacing here on the left-hand side. That's actually the loading request. And clarify that again, but it's loading request and then the intersection spacing on the right-hand side. So we'll start with David Boyette. So David, could you please state your name? You already covered your address. Can you just give your background, your education, your experience?
Sure, absolutely. So again, David Boyette with McAdams, licensed civil engineer in the state of North Carolina. Went to NC State, have a civil engineering degree from them. Been practicing here in Raleigh for a little more than 20 years. A lot of commercial site development, a lot of mixed use, so very familiar with how these types of projects unfold.
At this time, I'd like to tender David Boyette as an expert in civil engineering and site design. So David, can you explain to the commission your role in this project?
Sure. I am the project manager for McAdams. I'm leading the civil design effort. I'm also, well, I am leading that civil design effort.
So I forecasted to the commission that a lot of this is driven for the need to kind of have a successful pedestrian area on the west and the northwest, and then to push site access elsewhere. Can you explain how you went about designing site access for this project?
Sure. So we wanted to stay away from having any type of vehicular access on the northwest corner of the site. Oh, sorry. Because that is our main pedestrian realm. So we pushed the driveway into the parking garage on the second level as far as we could away from that pedestrian realm. That a lot of that is driven by the topography, which we'll get into a little more later, how that relates to the parking garage. And then we wanted to move our more service-oriented aspects of the project further away from that area. So those are all off of Astor Elgin, which is the street that we anticipate will have less traffic. We do have a vehicular entrance into the parking garage off of Astor Elgin also on the lower level, and then our service and loading entrance is also off of that. The topography, again, drives the need for the entrances on different levels of the garage. The unit count in the building pushes us to have 2 vehicular entrances, so that's why those are there. And again, our main pedestrian entrance into the building, all of that retail space is centered on that corner away from these. So we're trying to get away from having vehicular and pedestrian conflicts.
So we're going to move to the parking deck and kind of work our way through it. So this slide shows our first level or lowest level of the parking. Can you just talk about the features of this level and the layout?
Sure. So again, you enter where the yellow star is on the lowest level. as a vehicular entrance, the green obviously being service. As you enter, this is basically the lowest point of the site, very close to where that vehicular entrance is. So the vehicles come in and immediately turn to the right to start ramping up to the second level. There are a few parking spaces on that lower level, but most of it is going up to the second. If you are a service vehicle, you're going to back into this loading dock area, which we'll get to in our second, but that's a double height space. So that's what allows the vehicles to navigate in through that area. As soon as you get past, I think I can annotate, can I? This line right here, you no longer have the head height, and that's due to the ramping to make the parking garage function. So that's why, that's the delineation line there. Menu,
There we go. All right, so we're kind of moving our way outside to put some of those comments in perspective. So we're now looking at the frontages and the elevations on Astor Elgin and Midtown Market Avenue. So can you talk about, I guess, the features here and how the site's topography impacts our access?
Absolutely. So the highest point of the site is on this corner of Midtown Market where our retail space is. We have, there's about 16 feet of grade change from that high point on the site to where the low point on the site is located on Astor Elgin. So that's how our parking garage entry level 2 and the others on level 1 because of that topo change. There's about 4 feet of grade change from the side of the Astor Elgin Midtown Market intersection. That slips down about 4 feet. And then along Midtown Market, going from the northwest corner where the retail is to the Astor Elgin intersection, there's about 14 feet of grade change there.
So we're looking at these side elevations, and can you just kind of reiterate then why when we look at our loading area entrance, why we couldn't have that same 2-story loading area continue on into other parts of the deck?
Sure, that has to do with the grade inside the parking garage and the why we have to have the ramp that gets us up. It's really the ramp on the second level that is coming down that takes that head height down to floor of 11.5 feet. Then you've got the structure of the parking garage, so you don't have the head height for a truck to maneuver in that area.
All right, so we're back inside our parking deck, and so again, just want to look from this perspective and cover that same point. So how those features, again, don't allow us to have a turnaround area.
Sure, yeah, it really comes back to that grade again. We're at 257 FFE on the lower level. We're at 257 here, but when we go to the second level of the deck, you'll see that 11.5 foot floor to floor there.
And just to reiterate for the commission, we said this at the beginning, but again, why did we choose to put the loading entrance in this location?
Because it's the furthest away from any pedestrian activity or where we see pedestrian activity is going to happen. So we're trying to, again, mitigate those interactions.
So I'll ask the commission to remember the list of all the things we got to check. I'm going to ask a couple of those more conclusory questions. So, David, so does this proposed loading orientation increase congestion or compromise safety?
No, in our opinion, it does not.
Okay, and so I want to hand up a document. We are proposing some conditions on this one. So this comes from a similar project, and we've talked with staff on these that dealt with the change in forward motion. And so I'm going to hand these to Catherine if I can approach.
You might want to hand them to the clerk to pass around that way. Yep.
While they're doing that, you want me to run through those?
Yeah, and so,
Okay.
yeah, David, if you don't mind running through those conditions so that the commission knows what we're proposing
Okay.
here.
So the first one is to have a change in material or color along the sidewalk on either side of that loading entrance that would signal a pedestrian that they are entering a different zone along the sidewalk, much like you would do at a crosswalk at a street with a truncated dome or something of that nature. The second is to provide a turn template to city transportation such that we can demonstrate to them that backing movement does in fact work with the size service vehicle that we intend to be here. And then the third is to provide either a landscape area or some sort of area right outside of the entrance, such that if the sidewalk was pulled all the way up to the building, a pedestrian walking on the sidewalk would have to move away from the building so that a vehicle can see them better from inside the parking garage. It just pushes them out away from that building wall.
And again, these were conditions we pulled from, there's a precedential case where this same request was granted. And so rather than have the commission ask us for it, we decided we just affirmatively offer it and try to make it a little more efficient. So David, with these conditions, is it your opinion that this ensures a safe loading area?
Yes, it is.
And then another kind of box checking exercise here. Does this layout, this loading entrance conflict with an approved or built roadway construction project adjacent to or in the vicinity of the site?
No, it is not.
So that concludes the presentation on our loading request. We're happy to answer questions or we can continue on. And I may do that unless I see a hand go up. So just want to now transition to the second request, which is the Midtown Market Avenue intersection spacing. So we're now looking from north of the site straight at that retail component. And so, this whole request, again, comes down to trying to serve and create an effective vertical mixed-use project. And so right off page to the left is going to be where our deck entrance is located. We didn't want to move it further to the west and interrupt this retail area, but at the same time, to have successful retail, we want to make sure that there's convenient parking in a convenient parking location. So we feel that our entrance here is kind of ideally situated and strikes the right balance, but we'll have David establish that a little better. So we're now looking again at that overall layout. We've got yellow highlighting that retail area. We're showing our level 2 entry there in blue. So David, let me just ask you, can you explain again why we couldn't put a second level entry on Astor Elgin instead of Midtown Market?
Sure. The grade there does not allow you to enter the garage on the second level from Astor Elgin. It's simply a grading thing.
Okay. And then next, why didn't we locate it any further west, the entrance any further west on Midtown Market?
Sure. So that too is a grade thing. We had to match up the elevation of the site to the upper level of the parking garage. Also, sliding any further would have reduced the experience of that retail zone.
And it's probably hard for the commission to see, but is it correct that that whole frontage is 311 feet?
311 feet is correct.
So in any case, either side of that midpoint puts you out of compliance, is that right?
That is correct.
So moving to the second level of parking, so this is the entrance location for Midtown Market Avenue. Can you just explain this level's features and how it functions?
Sure. So you enter here on the second level of the garage, and then you circulate around this direction to go up to the third level. And this is the area that's open to below that we discussed previously.
Perfect. So again, kind of going through our formal criteria here. So does this proposed Midtown Market access increase traffic congestion?
No, it does not. And we had trip generation numbers run for peak AM and PM hours. We've submitted that to the city, and in our opinion, that shows that this does not increase congestion.
And does this proposed Midtown Market access point compromise safety?
No, we do not believe it compromises safety. It's intended in its location to reduce the pedestrian and vehicular interactions.
Thank you, David. I'm just going to quickly summarize the application of those conditions based on the evidence that you just heard, and then we're certainly available to answer any questions. So again, starting on the left-hand side, it says driveway spacing, but what that is the loading request to have a backwards motion into the loading area and a forward motion out. It's consistent with the intent of the Section 8.3.5 requirements. The intent there is to have safe and efficient vehicular access to a site. This is certainly efficient and takes into account kind of the unique site constraints that we have here. And with our offered conditions, our expert has testified that it is a safe layout for the project. He stated, and pretty precise terms that it will not increase congestion or compromise safety, nor does it conflict with an approved or built plan. The last one, whether this is reasonable or not, we think we apply a number of these boxes here. Again, given the physical environment, again, we've got a small site where we're trying to achieve a lot of good things here with a vertical mixed-use project. And then we've got some sloping topography that really tells you how this site's gonna function. So given the physical environment, it really isn't feasible to have a loading area with enough turnaround space and still be able to ramp our deck. The alternative would be a redesign and a totally different deck that compromises that vertical mixed-use component, that retail we're trying to seek here. Also, when it comes down to it, that really wouldn't meaningfully improve connectivity in the first place. We think our layout here is efficient, and with the safety and the extra features we've offered here, there's really no concerns that we should have with this. Moving on to the driveway to intersection spacing requirement. Again, the intent here is to have safe and efficient vehicular access. We certainly think that that location on its own is a safe location, but moreover, this location, this design allows us to have a safer pedestrian realm where we're trying to prioritize that northwest corner, that western face where we have that park area. We don't want to have vehicles turning in and interrupting that location, yet we still want to make sure that we've got a convenient entrance location to have successful retail. It does not increase congestion or compromise safety. That was an affirmative statement of our expert witness. Same with creating additional maintenance obligations. He is a licensed engineer and designed it. It does not adversely affect stormwater. And again, getting to the reasonable one, kind of the big picture discussions. Our physical environment tells us a lot about this site. Again, small frontages, 311 feet of frontage. If you're moving a foot on either side, there's some form of a request. In this case, the location we chose, I think, is appropriate for the overall picture for the project. And so I think that checks kind of both of them, the physical environment, the slopes, and then not reasonable given the size or intensity of the development. It's a 2.3 acre site with a lot of good things going on. So with that, we have presented competent material and substantial evidence as to each of these elements, but we've got our team here available to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. Are there any members of the public who are here to speak on this case? I'm seeing none. Any questions from the commission for the applicant? What's the planned programming for the site immediately to the east and to the north?
So the east, we go back, and David, you probably know this better than I do. The east is already developed with multifamily.
Yes, the east is multifamily, and the program for the property to the west has not been fully developed yet. There could be a phase 2 of this project that would be more multifamily or with mixed-use elements also, but again, that's not been really fleshed out yet.
And to the north?
To the north, there's more residential, and then I believe that this property here, I want to say is a daycare, but I am not 100% certain, so I can't tell you with any certainty what that's a bank. Okay, been told it's a bank. Thanks.
A little different than a daycare.
Yeah.
Yes, that is.
Different clientele.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit curious about your assertion that there's less pedestrian traffic on Astor Elgin because there does seem to be a lot of residences on that side. Can you
Sure.
elaborate a little bit more on
Sure.
how you got there?
The main entrance to our building will be on what we're calling Street A right now, which is the north-south street that we'll be putting in. So while there may be folks on the opposite side of Astor Elgin, we don't see the people from any of these townhomes or that multifamily crossing over the street and then coming north. They're most likely going to stay on their side of the street. Obviously, it's possible, but not as likely.
What's the intersection configuration for, so is Midtown Market free-flowing and then there's stop signs from Astor?
Correct. Midtown Market is the free movement. And then all of the other cross streets have stops.
Thank you for, go ahead and putting in writing your suggested conditions. It's much appreciated. And does seem pretty consistent with what we've done in the past. Any reason why you would do this just at the one entrance and not at all of the vehicular entrances?
Well, I don't know that there's a reason why we could not do that. We typically don't do them at entrances where we are complying with the code of the forward movement in both directions.
Yeah, and on the one component of it, to have the landscape boxes sticking out, I think the general preference would be to have the wider streetscape, but in this situation, there's an incentive to funnel people a little more than would otherwise be necessary.
Gotcha. Understood. I think in interpreting the plans, there's a landscape area on kind of buffering the parking deck on the
There is a
northeast
landscape
corner.
area on the property that separates the sidewalk from the parking garage. So at this point in time, there is no sidewalk in that location. But should that design change, we want to make sure that we're still having a safe environment there.
And then my last question, it looks like there's a service door that's immediately north of the loading entrance.
There
that
is.
Any
There
concern
is. It
with
would
this
not-
amendment?
That does not interfere with that request. We made sure that the dimensions worked.
Great. Other questions from the commission? Okay, can we have I'll now close the hearing unless there's anything further you'd like to add as applicant. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, hearing no additional questions, I'll now close the hearing and bring the matter to the table. As a reminder, this commission is tasked with deciding if, based on the evidence presented, the proposal meets the applicable standards. This decision cannot be based on personal preference. Rather, it is based on standards and evidence. If, based on its deliberation, the commission requires additional evidence, the commission will reopen the hearing. Okay, would anyone like to offer any thoughts on these two design alternate requests? And Casey, do you mind cycling back to the findings? Thank you.
I mean, really, I appreciate that they've looked at previous projects and previous cases that we've seen and taken, those into consideration with what's written here in the proposed conditions. I do see these as good, propositions, and I can't find, much of a better way to handle the design rather than what it is right now. And as long as transportation is happy with it and thinks it's fine, I agree with the experts.
They said that they didn't have any concerns. I'm happy to bring them back up and ask them, but it seems.
That was my understanding from them as well, so.
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah, that was also my question maybe for transportation, since that would be helpful to see a turn template. I think I feel like all of these are reasonable. The backing into of, four-wheeler into that space feels like there's a lot of potential blind spots coming out. I feel like these are, like number 3 that's proposed on here is like a safe way, I think, to making pedestrian more obvious, but like you still have to back into it with limited visibility, which maybe would be my main concern. But if, and that's where having this diagram would be helpful, but if transportation feels comfortable with it, that's their area of expertise. So.
Yeah, I'm happy to reopen it in a second and just confirm that. But Travia, this is kind of more of your expertise. Can you speak in the microphone? Sorry.
The only thing that I wanted to understand a little bit better maybe is with the barrier. I didn't understand like how much of the sidewalk is left with the narrowing. So that's maybe something if we can get some understanding of that would be good.
We can definitely clarify that. Is there a certain number that you're looking for?
What's that?
Is there a certain number that you're looking for there, or?
Well, I would say minimum 5 feet, which they're saying the barrier is going to be 5 feet for So I don't know how much the sidewalk is right now for it to be at least 5 feet.
My interpretation is that the sidewalks, the building's actually back from the sidewalk edge. So that zone isn't actually on the sidewalk that we're talking about. But I'm happy to confirm that. Any other thoughts or questions? I think this seems pretty straightforward, pretty reasonable. Certainly the, width being they're going to need a request either way to be able to locate an entrance. So we'll reopen the hearing, and if city staff, if you guys could confirm on Claire's request that the conditions that are proposed are adequate and reasonable and easy to enforce.
Yes, we would just still like to see, I got too close. Yeah, we would still like to see the turning templates just to make sure that the truck can make the maneuver. If we would prefer it to not run up on the sidewalk and stuff like that. That would probably increase maintenance costs. If that was the case, it kind of cause cracking and stuff like that. But if it's able to complete the maneuver in their space, then there's no concern.
Okay. Catherine, do you feel like, this is consistent with what we've done before, but this seems sufficient to that end, correct?
Yeah, reading them, they seem like they're readable and understandable to me, as long as staff is good with them as well.
Okay.
And I do think they all look familiar.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for staff while they're up? And then if the applicant could just address the question of sidewalk width.
So the current sidewalk width is 12 feet from the back of curb to the property line, and then the building sits 10 to 12 feet away from that. There's a landscape zone there. So if we did put sidewalk all the way up to the building, we would far exceed the 12 feet that's required. So having that bump out there would nowhere near encroach on that 12-foot required width.
Okay. Thank you. We'll close the hearing again. Would someone like to make a motion? I think we've addressed all questions.
You got it. Okay. Motion to approve.
Both, you just specify.
With the conditions?
No, well, the 3 conditions that they listed there.
Yeah,
Yeah, no more than that.
Perfect.
Yep, there's a motion on the floor to approve with the proposed conditions the applicant submitted in writing.
And
Is there a second?
I'll second, but I did want to ask, are we asking for the diagram of the turn?
Yeah, that's the second
That's
condition,
on the second,
is
gotcha.
that be provided to city staff. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, that passes unanimously. Thank you. The commission's written decision will be adopted when the minutes of this meeting are adopted, and the written decision will be provided to the applicant and other parties with right to such notice following the adoption of the decision. Thank you. Okay, I believe we have minutes to approve from the November 7th meeting. If someone would like to make a motion or otherwise amend the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve them as written.
Okay, motion, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none. Okay, that is our business. Casey, is there anything else that we need to cover tonight?
I don't have, oh, I got an electric shock at the same time the screen went out. I don't have anything unless, there's a chair report or a report from the city attorney.
Okay, Catherine, do you have anything?
I will just give you a heads up that in January, that there's a case coming before you that the city is the applicant, so you'll have outside counsel for that case. And Tom Johnson, who I believe sat with some of you, might remember him. He did that before for a case. So if you see him, he'll be here for that.
Okay. Yeah, it's my understanding that we're going to have pretty low numbers for that case. So if you have previously responded to say that you can be there, I think we're absolutely counting on you to be there. I think potentially have 5 and need all 5 because that's the January 2nd date. And then, Casey, do we have anything for the December 17th agenda? So if not, I'm going to suggest that we cancel it. Sound good? Okay. Is that cool with everyone else? All right. Then we'll cancel the December 17th. We'll be back January 2nd. And what's that?
The 19th, I think.
Sorry, not the 17th, the 19th. Thank you. There will not be a second December meeting.
There's also not a meeting on the 17th. So
Cool, yeah. Anything else that the commission would like to say or add? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.